The story of Hugo Schmeisser is a gripping, complex, and often tragic tale of a brilliant weapons designer whose life was closely intertwined with the darkest chapters of 20th century history. Hugo Schmeisser was born in Erfurt, Germany, in 1884 to Louis Schmeisser, a renowned weapons designer who worked for the Bergmann Company. From a young age, Hugo absorbed knowledge of firearms design and production, and his father's talents undoubtedly inspired him. Hugo subsequently followed in his father's footsteps and began working in the same field, which led him to the Henkel Company in Seoul, where he quickly distinguished himself as an outstanding engineer. Schmeisser's real success came in the interwar period. He developed a number of innovative weapons that gained recognition among both the military and hunters. One of his most famous creations was the MP-18, one of the world's first submachine guns, which played a key role in the final months of World War I. He continued to refine the submachine gun concept with the MP-28, which became very popular in various countries. With the rise of the Nazis in Germany, demand for weapons soared. Schmeisser, a patriot, and perhaps out of necessity, began developing new designs for the Wehrmacht. His work led to the creation of the MP-40, a submachine gun that became a symbol of the German infantry during World War II. The MP-40 was relatively inexpensive to produce and easy to operate, making it an ideal weapon for a mass army. However, Schmeisser's most significant contribution was the STG-44 Sturmgewehr 44 assault rifle of 44. The STG-44 is considered the world's first modern assault rifle, combining the range and accuracy of a rifle with the high rate of fire of a submachine gun. It used an intermediate cartridge 7.92 by 33mm Kurz, which was more powerful than a pistol cartridge, but less powerful than a rifle cartridge. This allowed for effective fire at medium ranges. The STG-44 had a profound influence on the development of small arms worldwide. After the end of World War II, Seoul, where the Henkel factory was located, ended up in the Soviet occupation zone. In October 1945, Hugo Schmeisser was arrested by Soviet troops. Like many other German engineers, he was forcibly transported to the Soviet Union. Schmeisser, along with other German gunsmiths, was sent to Izhevsk, the center of the Soviet arms industry, where he is believed to have worked on improving small arms. Here begins the most controversial and debatable part of his biography. There is a theory that Schmeisser had a significant influence on the design of the Kalashnikov assault rifle AK-47. Some historians and experts believe that a number of technical solutions used in the AK-47 may have been borrowed from the STG-44, in particular the tilting bolt locking system and layout. It's worth noting that Mikhail Kalashnikov himself always denied any influence by Schmeisser on the creation of the AK-47, insisting that the rifle was entirely his original design. Soviet sources also did not confirm this information. The extent of Schmeisser's influence on the AK-47 remains a subject of debate and research, and there is still no definitive answer. In 1952, after 6 years of work in the USA, Hugo Schmeisser was released and returned to Germany. However, his health deteriorated, and he died in Seoul on September 12, 1953, just a year after returning home. The legacy of Hugo Schmeisser is that of a talented yet tragic man. His contribution to the development of small arms is undeniable. His designs, particularly the STG-44, had a profound influence on the subsequent development of assault rifles worldwide. Despite his work for the Nazi regime, his genius as an engineer and designer is undeniable. The question of his influence on the creation of the AK-47 remains open and continues to fascinate historians and weapons experts. Hugo Schmeisser's life is a shining example of how science and technology can be used for both good and evil, and how the fate of a person can be closely intertwined with the tragic events of history. Okay, here's a more detailed account of Hugo Schmeisser's life in English, touching on similar points but with some added details and nuances. Hugo Schmeisser 18,840,1953 was a German weapon designer, best known for his contributions to the development of automatic firearms, particularly during World War II. His life is a complex and fascinating story intertwined with the technological advancements and political turmoil of the 20th century. Born in Jena, Germany, in 1884, Hugo Schmeisser inherited a passion for firearm design from his father, Louis Schmeisser, a prominent weapon designer who worked for Bergmann. Hugo followed in his father's footsteps, eventually joining the Bergmann Company and later moving to Hennel in Seoul, a center of German arms manufacturing. Schmeisser's early career focused on improving existing firearm designs. He became deeply involved with the development of submachine guns, a relatively new class of weapon after World War I. His designs, like the MP-18 and MP-28, helped to establish the submachine gun as a viable and effective weapon for close-quarters combat. The MP-18, in particular, is considered one of the first true submachine guns to see widespread use, especially during the later stages of World War I. The MP-28 was an improvement and became commercially successful, being adopted by various police and military forces worldwide. The rise of the Nazi regime in Germany brought increased demand for weapons. Schmeisser's expertise became highly sought after. He continued to work for Hennel, designing weapons for the Wehrmacht German armed forces. His most famous creation from this period was the MP-40 submachine gun, a standardized and relatively inexpensive weapon that became a symbol of German infantry. During World War II, its widespread use and association with German soldiers made it a widely recognized weapon of the conflict. However, Schmeisser's most impactful contribution was the Sturmgewehr 44 STG-44, often considered the world's first modern assault rifle. This revolutionary weapon combined the range and accuracy of a rifle with the high rate of fire of a submachine gun. It utilized an intermediate cartridge 7.92 by 33 mm Kurz, which was less powerful than a full-sized rifle cartridge, but more powerful than a pistol round. This allowed for effective fire at medium ranges. The STG-44 influenced the design of assault rifles worldwide, setting a new standard for infantry weapons. Its design features, such as the curved magazine and the inline layout, were innovative for the time. At the end of World War II, Seoul found itself within the Soviet occupation zone. In October 1945, Schmeisser and other German engineers were rounded up by Soviet forces as part of an effort to exploit German technological expertise. He was forcibly relocated to the Soviet Union, specifically to Izhevsk, a major center of Soviet arms production. Here, Schmeisser's life took a controversial turn. It is widely theorized that he was involved in the development of the AK-47 assault rifle, designed by Mikhail Kalashnikov. Some historians and experts argue that certain design features of the AK-47, such as the rotating bolt locking system and general layout, may have been influenced by the STG-44. However, this remains a debated topic. Kalashnikov himself consistently denied any influence from Schmeisser on the AK-47, maintaining that it was an entirely original design. Soviet sources also did not acknowledge any significant contribution from Schmeisser. The extent of Schmeisser's influence on the AK-47 is a matter of ongoing debate and research, and there is no definitive proof of a direct connection. In 1952, after 6 years in the Soviet Union, Schmeisser was allowed to return to Germany. He was in poor health and died in Seoul on September 12, 1953, just a year after his return. Hugo Schmeisser's legacy is complex and multifaceted. He was undoubtedly a talented weapons designer who made significant contributions to the development of firearms. His designs, particularly the STG-44, had a profound impact on the evolution of assault rifles. However, his work for the Nazi regime and the unresolved question of his involvement in the AK-47 continue to fuel debate. He remains a figure whose story reflects the technological advancements and moral ambiguities of the 20th century. Key points to consider: early innovations. Schmeisser's work on the MP-18 and MP-28 helped establish the submachine gun as a viable weapon. The STG-44's impact. The Sturmgewehr 44 is considered the first modern assault rifle, and influenced countless designs that followed. The AK-47 controversy. The degree to which Schmeisser influenced the AK-47 is a subject of ongoing debate. Forced labor in the USA. Schmeisser's forced relocation to the Soviet Union highlights the exploitation of German expertise after World War II. A complex legacy. Schmeisser's life reflects the intersection of technological innovation, political ideology, and the human cost of war. Alright, let's delve even deeper into the life and legacy of Hugo Schmeisser, focusing on specific aspects and incorporating more nuanced details. Early life and influences. Hugo Schmeisser's upbringing within a family of arms designers profoundly shaped his career. His father, Louis Schmeisser, was a renowned figure in the German arms industry, working on innovative weapons for companies like Bergmann. Hugo's exposure to firearm design and manufacturing from a young age provided him with a unique foundation of knowledge and practical skills. He didn't just learn about weapons, he grew up surrounded by them. The family's close ties to the Bergmann company likely provided Hugo with early opportunities to learn the intricacies of gun design and production, even before his formal training. This immersive environment was crucial in developing his natural talent and passion for engineering. His early work involved assisting his father, honing his understanding of mechanics and ballistics. The Henel era. Innovations and collaboration. Schmeisser's move to C.G. Henel Waffen and Fahrradfabrik in Seoul was a pivotal moment in his career. Henel was a well-established arms manufacturer with a reputation for quality and innovation. At Henel, Schmeisser was given greater autonomy to develop his own designs and collaborate with other talented engineers. His collaboration with Theodor Bergmann Jr., son of the Bergmann Company founder, on the MP-18 was a testament to the importance of teamwork in arms development. The MP-18's success cemented Schmeisser's reputation as a capable designer and innovator, setting the stage for his future achievements. He wasn't working in isolation, he was part of a dynamic team that pushed the boundaries of weapons technology. The MP-40 and the challenges of mass production. While the MP-40 is widely known, its design and production history are more complex than often portrayed. The MP-40 was not a purely Schmeisser design. It was developed through a collaborative effort involving several engineers, including Heinrich Vollmer, whose earlier armor amp submachine guns served as a foundation. However, Schmeisser played a crucial role in refining the design and adapting it for mass production. One of the key challenges was to reduce manufacturing costs and simplify production processes without compromising reliability and performance. This required innovative engineering solutions and careful consideration of materials and manufacturing techniques. The MP-40 was also designed with the needs of modern warfare in mind, emphasizing compactness, ease of handling, and suitability for use in mechanized infantry units. The STG-44, a technological leap and its political context. The STG-44 was a radical departure from traditional rifle designs, representing a significant leap in weapons technology. Its development was driven by the need for a weapon that could bridge the gap between rifles and submachine guns, providing soldiers with greater firepower and versatility on the battlefield. The intermediate cartridge 7.92 by 33mm Kurz was a key innovation, offering a balance between range, accuracy, and manageable recoil. However, the development of the STG-44 was also influenced by the political and strategic context of World War II. German military planners recognized the limitations of existing weapons and sought a new type of firearm that could provide a tactical advantage. Schmeisser's design was selected after a rigorous evaluation process, demonstrating its superiority over competing prototypes. The STG-44, while groundbreaking, was also a product of a desperate effort to turn the tide of war, Soviet captivity, and the UK-47 controversy. Unraveling the truth. The circumstances surrounding Schmeisser's forced relocation to the Soviet Union remain shrouded in secrecy. He was part of a larger effort by the Soviet Union to gather German scientists and engineers after the war, aiming to exploit their knowledge and expertise. Schmeisser, along with other arms designers, was brought to his Hevsk, the heart of the Soviet arms industry. It is believed that they were tasked with assisting in the development and improvement of Soviet firearms, while Schmeisser's direct involvement in the UK-47 design is highly debated. It is plausible that he provided technical insights and feedback to the Soviet engineers. The extent of his influence, however, remains a matter of speculation. The Soviet Union was keen to portray the UK-47 as a purely indigenous design, so any potential German contribution was likely suppressed. The lack of transparent documentation and the political sensitivities surrounding the issue make it difficult to definitively determine the truth. Declassified Soviet archives may shed more light on this topic in the future, but for now, the Schmeisser UK-47 connection remains a compelling but unproven theory. Beyond the guns, Schmeisser as an engineer and a man, it's important to remember that Hugo Schmeisser was more than just a weapons designer. He was an engineer with a deep understanding of mechanics, ballistics, and materials science. He was also a man caught up in the tumultuous events of his time. While his work contributed to the war efforts of Nazi Germany, it is difficult to judge his motivations solely on moral grounds. He likely saw himself as an engineer fulfilling his duty to his country. His forced labor in the Soviet Union further complicates the picture. He was a victim of circumstances, forced to work for a regime that was ideologically opposed to his own. His story serves as a reminder of the complex relationship between technology, politics, and individual responsibility. In summary, Hugo Schmeisser's life was a fascinating and complex journey. He was a brilliant engineer who made significant contributions to the development of firearms. His designs influenced the course of modern warfare. However, his legacy is also intertwined with the darker aspects of the 20th century, raising difficult questions about the role of technology in war and the ethical responsibilities of scientists and engineers. He was a man of his time, shaped by the forces of history and technology, leaving behind a legacy that continues to be debated and analyzed today. Okay, let's delve even further into the intricate life and professional journey of Hugo Schmeisser, adding more layers of detail and context. Hugo Schmeisser's name resonates through the annals of firearms history, not merely as a designer, but as a pivotal figure whose innovations profoundly shaped the trajectory of small arms development in the 20th century. His life, spanning to world wars and the Cold War's nascent years, is a compelling narrative of engineering genius, wartime necessity, and post-war geopolitical maneuvering. Early life and a family legacy of innovation. Born in Jena in 1884, Hugo Schmeisser was destined for a career in arms design. His father, Louis Schmeisser, was an eminent German weapons constructor, responsible for several significant designs for Theodor Bergmann's company, including early machine guns and semi-automatic pistols. Growing up in this environment, Hugo was immersed in the world of mechanical engineering, ballistics, and manufacturing processes from a young age. He began his professional career working for Bergmann, where he assisted his father, gaining invaluable practical experience and developing a keen eye for design efficiency and reliability. This early exposure laid the groundwork for his future breakthroughs. The rise of the submachine gun, MP-18 and MP-28. Schmeisser's first major independent contribution came during World War I with the MP-18, Maschinenpistole 18, commissioned by the German army, which sought a compact, high-firepower weapon for trench warfare. The MP-18 was revolutionary. It was one of the first practical submachine guns to see widespread combat use, Its design featured an open bolt, blowback operation, and fed from a snail drum magazine, initially the 32-round TM08 Luger magazine. Though simple in construction, it proved devastatingly effective in close-quarters combat, particularly during the German Spring Offensive of 1918. After the war, despite the restrictions of the Treaty of Versailles, which severely limited Germany's arms production, Schmeisser continued his work at CG, Henel Waffen and Fahrradfabrik in Seoul. He refined the MP-18 into the MP-28, which featured a selective fire capability and the more conventional stick magazine. The MP-28 was widely exported and licensed for production in several countries, including Belgium, solidifying Schmeisser's reputation as a leading submachine gun designer. His designs were characterized by their robust construction, ease of manufacture, and reliability qualities that would define his later work. The Nazi era and the birth of the Sturmgewehr, with the rise of the Nazi regime in the 1930s, and the subsequent rearmament of Germany, Schmeisser's expertise became critical. He was not known to be a fervent Nazi ideologue, but like many engineers and industrialists, he worked within the system that offered him the opportunity to pursue his craft. His designs continued to evolve, leading to the MP-38 and its simplified successor, the MP-40. The MP-40, often mistakenly called the Schmeisser by Allied soldiers, was a masterpiece of wartime manufacturing efficiency. It heavily utilized stamped steel parts and plastic furniture, drastically reducing production time and cost compared to earlier machine designs. Its folding stock made it ideal for mechanized infantry and paratroopers, becoming an iconic weapon of the Wehrmacht. However, Schmeisser's most significant contribution was the development of the Sturmgewehr 44 STG-44. German military experience on the Eastern Front revealed a critical gap. Standard rifles were too powerful and slow-firing for the typical combat engagement range, often under 300 meters, while submachine guns lacked the necessary range and accuracy. The concept of an intermediate cartridge, less powerful than a rifle round, but more potent than a pistol cartridge, emerged. Schmeisser, working with the Polt ammunition factory to develop the 7.9 by 33 mm Kurz cartridge, led the design effort for a weapon to fire it. Initially designated Maschinenkarabiner 42 MKB-42H, Schmeisser's design was selected over a competing model from Walther. Despite initial resistance from Hitler, who favored traditional rifles, the weapon's effectiveness in combat trials led to its eventual adoption as the STG-44. The STG-44 was revolutionary. Intermediate cartridge, it pioneered the concept of the assault rifle cartridge, selective fire, capable of both semi-automatic and fully automatic fire, gas-operated system, reliable and controllable, stamped steel construction, further pushed the boundaries of mass production for complex firearms. Ergonomics, designed for practical combat use, with a relatively straight stock line to manage recoil. The STG-44 fundamentally changed infantry tactics and weaponry, directly influencing virtually every assault rifle developed thereafter. Forced labor in the USA and the AK-47 controversy. As World War II ended, Seoul, where Henel was located, fell into the Soviet occupation zone. The Soviets, eager to acquire German technological expertise, initiated Operation Osovyachim, also known as Trophy Brigades. In October 1945, Hugo Schmeisser, along with other key German arms designers and technicians from Henel and other factories, was forcibly relocated to the Soviet Union. He was sent to Izhevsk, a major center of Soviet arms production, specifically to Factory No. 74, later Izmash. Here, he and his German colleagues worked under close supervision, effectively in a Sharoshka, a secret research and development facility staffed by imprisoned or forcibly relocated scientists and engineers. Their mission was to assist in the development and modernization of Soviet small arms. This period is the most controversial part of Schmeisser's biography, due to its potential connection to the AK-47. While Mikhail Kalashnikov, is officially credited as the sole designer of the Ik-47. The presence of Schmeisser and his team in Izhevsk during the critical development phase of the Ik-47 1946 to 1949 has fueled persistent speculation about his influence. Arguments for Schmeisser's influence: proximity and expertise. Schmeisser was the world's leading expert on intermediate cartridge assault rifles and stamped metal construction, precisely the areas the Soviets were developing. Design similarities. Some experts point to similarities in the STG-44's and early Ik-47's gas system, bolt carrier design, and the overall receiver construction, though the Ik-47 eventually adopted a milled receiver before returning to stamped. Soviet intent. The Soviets explicitly brought German engineers to exploit their knowledge. It's improbable they wouldn't have consulted Schmeisser on assault rifle design. Lack of documentation. The official Soviet narrative deliberately downplayed or omitted any foreign contributions to maintain the image of indigenous Soviet genius. Arguments against direct influence or for Kalashnikov's originality. Kalashnikov's independent development. Kalashnikov had been working on his own rifle designs since 1941, predating the STG-44's widespread use. Different operating principles. While both are gas-operated, their specific gas systems and bolt locking mechanisms tilting bolt for STG-44 versus rotating bolt for Ik-47 are distinct. Evolution of Ik design. The Ik-47 underwent significant changes between prototypes and final production, suggesting an iterative Soviet design process. Supervision. Schmeisser and his team were supervised and likely not given free rein to design entirely new weapons for the Soviets, but rather to consult and troubleshoot. The most balanced view suggests that, while Schmeisser likely did not design the Ik-47, his presence, expertise, and the availability of the STG-44 for study and Rev. US engineering undoubtedly provided a valuable knowledge base and inspiration for Soviet engineers, potentially influencing design choices and manufacturing techniques. He was a consultant and problem solver, lending his vast experience to the Soviet effort. Return to Germany and final years. In 1952, after 6 years in the Soviet Union, Hugo Schmeisser was allowed to return to Germany. He was in poor health, his years of forced labor and the stress of the war having taken a toll. He died in Seoul on September 12, 1953, just over a year after his return, at the age of 69. His passing went largely unnoticed by the wider world, and in post-war Germany, his wartime associations meant his contributions were often downplayed or ignored. Legacy. Hugo Schmeisser's legacy is complex. He was a brilliant, pragmatic engineer who consistently pushed the boundaries of small arms design. His MP-18 ushered in the era of the submachine gun. The MP-40 perfected mass-producible combat firearms, and the STG-44 laid the foundational blueprint for the modern assault rifle. His work fundamentally altered infantry combat and continues to influence weapon design to this day. Yet, his story is also a poignant reflection of the 20th century's moral ambiguities. He was a man whose genius was harnessed by a totalitarian regime, and whose expertise was then exploited by another. The enduring debate surrounding his potential influence on the Ik-47 only adds to the mystique and complexity of a life lived at the very forefront of a technology that shaped the modern world. Okay, let's expand further on Hugo Schmeisser's story, delving into more specific technical aspects, the environment of his work, and the broader historical context of his influence. Hugo Schmeisser's life was a testament to the transformative power of engineering. In an era defined by conflict, his contributions to small arms design were not merely incremental improvements, but often revolutionary leaps that redefined infantry combat and set the stage for modern automatic weapons. The Schmeisser design philosophy: simplicity, reliability, and mass production. Beyond individual weapons, Schmeisser developed a distinct design philosophy. He was a pragmatist, deeply understanding the demands of military conflict. 1. Reliability. Weapons had to function flawlessly in harsh conditions. His designs, from the MP-18 to the STG-44, were known for their robustness. 2. Simplicity. Complex mechanisms were prone to failure and difficult to maintain. Schmeisser favored elegant, straightforward solutions. 3. Ease of manufacture. Especially crucial during wartime, his later designs MP-40, STG-44 pioneered the extensive use of stamped sheet metal parts, welding, and riveting over traditional machining. This significantly reduced production time, cost, and the need for highly skilled labor, allowing for mass production on an unprecedented scale. This shift from craftsman-built firearms to industrial mass production was a hallmark of his later work. 4. Ergonomics and user-friendliness. While perhaps not a primary focus, his designs were generally intuitive to operate and handle, contributing to their effectiveness in the hands of conscripted soldiers. Technical innovations beyond the obvious. The MP-18's open bolt system. This design choice, common in early submachine guns, simplified the mechanism and aided cooling during sustained fire. It was a practical solution for a weapon intended for high rates of fire in short bursts. The MP-40's folding stock and magazine well. The underfolding stock was a crucial innovation for paratroopers and vehicle crews, making the weapon compact. The magazine well, designed for a straight-stick magazine, was more reliable than the complex drum magazines of earlier designs. The use of plastic bakelite for the grips and foregrip was also a forward-thinking material choice. For its time, the STG-44's gas system and recoil management. The STG-44 employed a long-stroke piston gas system, a robust and reliable mechanism. Its relatively straight stock line, where the recoil impulse travels more directly into the shooter's shoulder, helped manage the recoil of the intermediate cartridge, making it more controllable in automatic fire than traditional rifles. The use of a muzzle brake was also considered for recoil reduction. The Schmeisser misnomer. It's worth reiterating and expanding on the common misconception. Allied soldiers frequently referred to the MP-40 as the Schmeisser. This was largely due to the magazine of the MP-40 being stamped patent Schmeisser. However, Hugo Schmeisser was not the sole designer of the MP-40. The primary designer was Heinrich Vollmer. Armor work. Schmeisser's company, Henel, was one of the main manufacturers, and Schmeisser held patents related to the magazine and other components. This misattribution, though inaccurate, speaks to the recognition of his name within the arms industry and the impact of the weapon itself. Life in Izhevsk, the German Sharoshka forearms. The relocation of Schmeisser and his team to Izhevsk was part of a much larger Soviet program to acquire and integrate German scientific and technical knowledge. These German specialists were housed in a special settlement, often with better living conditions than average Soviet citizens at the time, but they were under constant surveillance and their movements were restricted. They were provided with workshops and resources and tasked with reverse engineering, disassembling, and analyzing captured German weapons, particularly the STG-44. Consultation, providing expert advice on materials, manufacturing processes, and design principles. Troubleshooting, assisting Soviet engineers in overcoming technical challenges in their own designs. Training, potentially sharing their knowledge with Soviet technical staff. While they were not prisoners in the traditional sense, they were certainly not free. Their families were often with them, but their return to Germany was contingent on the Soviet Union deeming their work complete. For Schmeisser, a man who had dedicated his life to design, being in Izhevsk meant he was still engaged in his craft, albeit under duress and for a former enemy. It's plausible that he found a degree of professional satisfaction in continuing his work, even if the circumstances were grim. The enduring AK-47 debate. A nuanced perspective. The debate about Schmeisser's influence on the AK-47 is unlikely to ever be fully resolved, primarily due to the lack of transparent Soviet documentation. However, A nuanced perspective suggests conceptual influence. The STG-44 undeniably proved the viability and effectiveness of the assault rifle concept to the world, including the Soviets. This conceptual validation was crucial. Technical inspiration. While the AK-47 is mechanically distinct, e.g., rotating bolt versus tilting bolts, different gas system details, it's highly probable that Soviet designers studied the STG-44 extensively. Features like the intermediate cartridge, detachable box magazine, selective fire, and an ergonomic design for combat were all present in the STG-44. Manufacturing expertise. Schmeisser's team brought in valuable knowledge on stamped metal construction, which the Soviets initially struggled with, but eventually mastered for the AKM, the modernized AK-47. Parallel development. It's important to remember that Kalashnikov's design process was iterative, involving several prototypes. The final AK-47 was a culmination of Soviet design principles combined with insights gained from both their own experiences and the study of foreign weapons, including the STG-44. Schmeisser's presence in Izhevsk, therefore, likely served as a catalyst and an accelerant for Soviet small arms development. Even if he didn't directly put pencil to paper for the AK-47, he was a living, breathing repository of advanced assault rifle knowledge at a critical juncture for Soviet arms design. A legacy beyond borders. Schmeisser's impact extended far beyond Germany and the Soviet Union. The STG-44, though produced in limited numbers compared to later assault rifles, was captured and studied by all major powers. Its influence can be seen in French AIM-49, an early post-war French assault rifle that showed STG-44 influence, Spanish SEM and later German G3, while not direct copies. The intermediate cartridge concept and some design philosophies were certainly part of the post-war design landscape shaped by the STG-44. The very concept of the assault rifle. Every subsequent assault rifle, from the AK-47 to the M16, owes a conceptual debt to the STG-44's pioneering role. Hugo Schmeisser was a product of this time, a brilliant engineer caught in the maelstrom of 20th century history. His story is a powerful illustration of how technological innovation, often driven by the grim necessities of war, can profoundly alter the course of human events and leave an indelible mark on the world. His legacy is not just a list of weapons, but a fundamental shift in the paradigm of infantry combat. Okay, let's go even further into the life and intricate professional journey of Hugo Schmeisser, adding more specific historical context, technical details, and a deeper analysis of his circumstances. Hugo Schmeisser's life story is a microcosm of 20th century European history, a tale of unparalleled engineering talent caught in the maelstrom of two world wars, ideological conflict, and the relentless march of technological progress. His designs didn't just equip armies, they fundamentally altered the very nature of infantry combat, leaving an indelible mark on military doctrine and future weapon development. A heritage of precision. The Schmeisser family and early career. Hugo Schmeisser was born into a lineage of master craftsmen and innovators. His father, Louis Schmeisser, was a highly respected German arms designer, known for his work with Theodor Bergmann on early automatic pistols like the Bergmann 1896 and Bergmann Bayard and machine guns. This familial environment provided Hugo with an unparalleled apprenticeship. From a young age, he was immersed in the mechanics of firearms, the intricacies of metallurgy, and the precision required for weapon manufacturing. This hands-on education, combined with formal training, forged a designer with a deep, intuitive understanding of how weapons worked and, more importantly, how they should work. His early career at Bergmann, assisting his father, was foundational. He learned not just design principles, but also the practicalities of production, a skill that would become increasingly vital as warfare demanded ever greater quantities of arms. The dawn of automatic personal firepower, the MP-18 and its evolution. The First World War provided the crucible for Schmeisser's first major independent breakthrough. The static, brutal trench warfare highlighted the need for a compact, high volume of fire weapon for close-quarters assaults. The German army's call for such a weapon led to the MP-18, Maschinenpistole 18. It was a groundbreaking design, arguably the first true submachine gun to see widespread combat. The MP-18 was a revelation. It fired the 9x19mm parabellum pistol cartridge, fed from a 32-round snail drum magazine, the TM-08. Originally designed for the Luger pistol, its simple blowback operation and open bolt firing mechanism made it robust and relatively easy to manufacture. Elite German stormtroopers used it effectively in the spring offensive of 1918, clearing trenches with unprecedented speed and lethality. The MP-18's success immediately established the submachine gun as a vital new class of weapon. After the war, despite the severe restrictions imposed by the Treaty of Versailles, which prohibited Germany from developing or possessing automatic weapons, Schmeisser continued his work at sea. Henel and Sol. He ingeniously circumvented these restrictions by developing police carbines and export models. The MP-28, an improved version of the MP-18, featured a selective fire switch allowing both semi-automatic and full automatic fire, and a more reliable 32-round stick magazine. It was widely exported and licensed, notably to Belgium, demonstrating Schmeisser's ability to refine and market his designs globally, even under adverse political conditions. The arsenal of the Blitzkrieg, the MP-40 and wartime production. With the rearmament of Germany under the Nazi regime, Schmeisser's expertise became central to the war effort. While often mistakenly credited as the sole designer of the MP-40, his company, Henel, was a primary manufacturer, and Schmeisser held patents on key components, particularly the magazine. The MP-40, developed from earlier designs like the MP-38, epitomized Schmeisser's pragmatic approach to wartime production. The MP-40 was a triumph of manufacturing efficiency. It moved away from the expensive, time-consuming machining of earlier firearms, embracing stamped sheet metal components, welding, and allowed for rapid, high-volume production, making it an ideal weapon for the rapidly expanding Wehrmacht. Its iconic underfolding stock made it perfectly suited for the mechanized infantry and paratroopers of the Blitzkrieg, offering compactness without sacrificing firepower. The MP-40 became synonymous with the German soldier, a testament to its effectiveness and ubiquity. The revolutionary STG-44, birth of the assault rifle. Schmeisser's most profound and enduring legacy is the Sturmgewehr 44 STG-44. By the mid-war years, German experience on the Eastern Front revealed a critical tactical gap. Standard bolt-action rifles like the Kar-98K were too slow-firing for close-quarters combat, while submachine guns lacked the range and accuracy for engagements beyond 100 to 200 meters. The solution, pioneered by German engineers, was the intermediate cartridge, a round more powerful than a pistol cartridge, but less potent than a full-sized rifle round. Working closely with the Polt ammunition factory to develop the 7.92x3 3KUOZ short cartridge, Schmeisser led the design of a weapon to fire it. His prototype, the MKB-40-H Maschinenkarabiner 40 to Henel, competed against a design from Walther. Despite initial resistance from Hitler, who favored traditional rifles, the weapon's superior performance in combat trials, especially its ability to deliver controllable automatic fire at effective ranges, eventually led to its adoption. After political maneuvering and various designations, MP-43, MP-44, it was finally christened the Sturmgewehr 44 Assault Rifle 44. The STG-44 was revolutionary. Intermediate cartridge, the defining feature, balancing range, accuracy, and controllable automatic fire. Selective fire, offering versatility for both precision shots and suppressing fire. Gas-operated, long-stroke piston, a robust and reliable operating system, stamped steel receiver, pushing the boundaries of mass production for complex firearms, even further than the MP40. Ergonomics, designed for practical combat, with a relatively straight stock line to mitigate recoil and a high-capacity, detachable magazine. The STG-44 fundamentally redefined infantry weapon design. It proved the concept of the assault rifle, a weapon type that would dominate military arsenals worldwide for the rest of the century and beyond. The Soviet chapter, Izhevsk and the shadow of the AK-47. As World War I concluded, Seoul, where Henel was located, fell under Soviet occupation. The Soviets, recognizing the immense value of German technological prowess, initiated Operation Osovyakim, forcibly relocating thousands of German scientists, engineers, and technicians to the USSR. In October 1945, Hugo Schmeisser, along with his family and other key personnel from Henel, was moved to Izhevsk, the heart of the Soviet arms industry. For 6 years, Schmeisser and his German colleagues worked under close supervision at Factory No. 74 Izmash. They were not prisoners in the conventional sense, but their freedom was severely curtailed. They lived in a special settlement, provided with resources, but their primary purpose was to transfer their knowledge to Soviet engineers. This period is the genesis of the enduring controversy surrounding the AK-47, while Mikhail Kalashnikov is the official and celebrated designer. The presence of the world's leading assault rifle expert, Schmeisser, in Izhevsk during the AK-47's critical development phase 1946 to 1949 is highly suggestive. The Schmeisser influence argument. Proponents argue that Schmeisser's unparalleled expertise in intermediate cartridge weapons, stamp construction, and general assault rifle design would have been invaluable. Soviet engineers had access to the STG-44 for study and reverse engineering. It's plausible Schmeisser provided consultation, identified design flaws in Soviet prototypes, or offered solutions based on his vast experience. The Kalashnikov originality argument. Kalashnikov had been developing his own rifle designs since 1941. The AK-47's internal mechanisms, e.g., rotating bolt, specific gas system, are mechanically distinct from the STG-44. The official Soviet narrative vehemently denied any foreign influence, emphasizing indigenous Soviet genius. A balanced view acknowledges that while Schmeisser likely did not design the AK-47, his presence, the availability of the STG-44, and the collective expertise of the German specialists in Izhevsk undoubtedly served as a powerful catalyst. They provided a benchmark, a source of inspiration, and a pool of knowledge that accelerated Soviet small arms development. Schmeisser was a living library of assault rifle design principles at a crucial moment for the USSR. Return and obscurity. In 1952, after 6 years in the Soviet Union, Hugo Schmeisser was finally allowed to return to Germany. His health was severely compromised by the years of forced labor and the stress of his experiences. He died in Seoul on September 12, 1953, at the age of 69, just over a year after his return. His death passed largely unremarked upon by the world. In post-war Germany, his wartime associations meant his immense contributions were often downplayed or ignored. An enduring and complex legacy. Hugo Schmeisser's legacy is one of profound technological impact, intertwined with the moral complexities of the 20th century. He was a brilliant engineer whose innovations from the MP-18 to the STG-44 fundamentally transformed infantry warfare. He was a master of practical design, prioritizing reliability, simplicity, and mass production. His life, however, also serves as a stark reminder of how scientific and engineering talent can be harnessed by destructive forces and how individuals can become pawns in geopolitical struggles. The shadow of the STG-44, the first assault rifle, continues to loom large over every subsequent weapon of its type, including the ubiquitous AK-47. Schmeisser's story is a testament to the power of human ingenuity, but also a somber reflection on the ethical dilemmas inherent in the creation of tools designed for conflict. His work continues to shape the world, long after his quiet passing.